We're here at the Caravan and Motorhome Club site at Broadway, which is home of the Wanderer, which is famously the first ever purpose-built leisure caravan from 1885. But today we're going to be having a very special chat with Sarah, who's head of the Caravan and Motorhome Club collection, to tell us all about the complex history of this amazing caravan. Let's go take a closer look. So you've bought an incredible selection of just some of the things that the Caravan and Motorhome Club collection holds, and some of them look quite fragile, don't they?
They are indeed. So we're going to handle them with gloves to make sure that we don't ruin any of these. These are the oldest items we have in the collection because they are all from the 1800s and they relate to the first later built caravan, the Wanderer.
So to start the story off, we've got this character, Dr. Gordon Stables, who is a Royal Naval surgeon and has travelled the world, and what inspires him to create this concept of a caravan that no one's ever done before.
So Dr. William Gordon Stable had travelled the world extensively and was a great fan of the great outdoors. He was inspired in commissioning the Wanderer by the living wagons of the gypsies.
When you look at the information that survives we all think of the typical bow top wagon. They're very bright, they're very colourful, they're perfectly round. And the story goes that it was the head of the family, so typically that the male would stretch his arms out, and that's how they would determine the size of it. And the Wanderer is just a completely different approach, and it's also much bigger as well.
It is. Gordon Stables wanted something that he could tour the country with, and something that it was built exclusively for his leisure. So it was not a living accommodation, it was just a holiday caravan, and that's why we refer to him as the inventor of caravanning as we know it today, because it was built for holidays. And the incredible size of it, it's due to a lot of factors, one of which was the fact that he never traveled alone. He always had a coachman and at least one valet riding with him. So there needed to be enough space for them and for his dog and his parrot and his violin, those things that always traveled alongside him.
This is what I mean. Suddenly you've moved away from it's a wagon for living in that has a bed in it and a stove, and suddenly it's this very opulent thing, and the windows as well are very unusual, and that's what leads everyone to agree, even at the time, he was probably the first person to build a leisure caravan specifically.
He was, and at that point in time there wasn't anyone specialized in producing anything like it. So he went to the Bristol Wagon Company and he commissioned this caravan, and it was a combination of him giving specifications of what he thought he might need on the road, and them putting their coach building expertise into it. Also, quite interestingly, it wasn't the only one that was being produced at that point in time. This is the first one, but actually it had a sister caravan that was produced by the Bristol Wagon Company at the same time. That was called the Bohemian.
Right, because this is so the year that it was actually built was 1885, and he took to the road in the following year, and there's quite a few that they were nicknamed the gentleman gypsies, and there was all sorts of things historically, because there seemed to be, once this idea had taken hold, and I think people watching this have got to remember, this is in a time when there was no internet, there was no telephones, you'd have to write to people, you'd have to physically meet these people to discuss these ideas. It's interesting to me that this becomes as famous as it did at the time.
Well, he started an incredible trip from Twyford, where he lived, all the way up to Scotland, and he produced an account of...
So that's probably, about 400 miles maybe? It's a long way to go with something that weighs 2 tons behind 2 horses.
It is, and we know that he had to recruit specifically for this trip by this little teeny tiny news cutting that we have in the collection that mentions that he was looking to hire 2 strong horses, and this was a key factor because not many horses could pull this enormous caravan all the way up to Scotland and back.
So straight away it becomes quite famous in its own right.
It does.
And there are several people who are inspired by the idea, and he, well, famously, once he'd finished his work with the Royal Navy, became an author and wrote about his travels with the Wanderer.
He wrote about many things, but one of the most significant publications for us in the collection is this book called The Cruise of the Land Yacht Wanderer, and it's the account of his first trip. And very interestingly, in the beginning of the book, we have these wonderful photographs that shows all the entourage he was traveling with, including his children.
It's interesting how we started this by you saying how he was on his way to buy a yacht, and he ends up referring to it as the land yacht. So in many ways, it's quite inspired by the nautical world.
It is, because he was a sailor and he brought with himself that desire to be in the elements, in nature, and there was no name for a caravan, as we now call them.
Yeah.
So what he invented was a way to express the same concept. A yacht, something that was independent at sea, could work exactly the same way on land.
Excellent. It's very like a yacht. It's very opulent. It's very over the top.
Absolutely. He was a very eccentric gentleman.
Yes, and it's interesting to me how when you compare at the time the living wagons that we referenced that are very bright and colourful, and the way that they express status was how elaborately they were painted and decorated, and Dr. William Gordon Stables has gone the other way and just gone bigger, larger, taller, longer, wider, which is kind of how caravans have gone since then. Just keep getting bigger and bigger. And straight away he had that concept from day one.
He did, and we can see it from the illustrations of the interiors of the caravan that he had commissioned for his book. So you can see here there are illustrations of the pantry, which was full from bottom to the top with crockery, obviously. And then we have a wonderful image of the living quarters, so after the first door, where he slept and he wrote. So there is a little pull-down table where he used to sit and write his books, because of course this is one of many books that he wrote during his lifetime. And some incredible details that we have in these illustrations show already the stained glass that we have on the lantern roof. They show the wonderful glass lamps on the inside, and as you mentioned, the incredible opulence of it all.
That's what's so funny to me, is that it's hard to get across to people how different this was to anything that went before it. And it obviously inspired quite a few people. And this led to the formation of what was then known as the Caravan Club in 1907.
It did. So we have a group of admirers, 11 people, 10 men and 1 woman, that in 1907 decided to come together and found this club for gentlemen gypsies, as they actually refer to themselves as. And they were so heavily inspired by Gordon Stables that they actually asked him to be the vice president of the club, which was just an honorary title. He actually never took part in any of the club meetings or the club actual meets. And he passed away 3 years after the formation of the club. But it was just to acknowledge the fact that this concept and this incredible way of holidaying was invented by Gordon Stables.
It's great that this isn't a myth or a legend. It was agreed upon and documented at the time as this was the first leisure caravan.
Absolutely, and we have quite a few interesting items that tell the story. So we have Gordon Stables' own visiting calling card that actually refers to himself, his titles, and then has an illustration of the Wanderer and also the Wanderer caravan written on the side, because it was so iconic that was the one thing that he was known for.
It's interesting because obviously he would have had some notoriety for being an author, but actually commissioning this leisure vehicle really inspired people.
It did, and people were stopping him on the road. People, well, there are several accounts in newspaper of the time recalling, seeing this incredible sight approaching villages, people running up to it, and it was also preceded always by someone riding on a tricycle and blowing a whistle to just let people know that something really, really big was coming on the road, and so to get out of the way, because of course roads were absolutely not thought to be able to host something like that. And similarly, no one had space to store something like that. So every village that it stopped, he had to make special arrangement to be able to park in someone's garden or stop in someone's field or just pull up by the side of the road, as some of these photographs show.
Because the interesting thing historically is that, so this is 1907, but the first documented proprietary manufacturer, Eccles, don't start production in earnest until 1919. So 12 years later. That was quick maths. And they had the same approach of the people generally did not know what a caravan was. And part of the way that they marketed that was just to hitch it up to an early motor vehicle and just drive it around neighborhoods, and people would almost see it as a traveling attraction.
Yeah.
But straight away, the one thing that was common is, whether it was the Wanderer or the Eccles caravans, is that people looked at it and loved this idea of everything that Dr. William Gordon Stables had said. I want to be able to go out and write a book and have somewhere to sleep and practice my violin. Everybody else thought this thing of a towable home that became this pursuit of the great outdoors. It's an idea that everyone fell in love with right from day one, isn't it?
They did. And again, we have records of that because Gordon Stables had a visitor's book in his caravan.
Long before the days of Airbnb, he had a visitor's book.
He had a visitor's book that was signed by a lot of people that he invited inside to actually tour his caravan and see what the Wanderer looked like inside. And a lot of people made comments like charmed, a beautiful abode, sweet and beautiful. So people were really impressed by this incredible novelty that was on the road.
Presumably these are just people who he met on his travels.
Some are and some aren't. Some of these people traveled specifically to him because they wanted to visit the caravan. And one of these we know being Mary Leighton from London, who was an author later on in life. And she made this wonderful little comment saying that she had a glimpse into an ideal life. And her husband, again, said a most enviable life. So he was really being inspiring, and he was motivating people to just go outside and explore the great outdoors.
So that makes sense then why, when the Caravan Club, as it was then known, is formed, they want someone as an ambassador who is really putting caravanning on the map. Which he certainly did, but perhaps the stronger link is with his daughter.
Indeed. So Dr. William Gordon Sable had several kids, but Ottoline Gordon Sable, which we have a wonderful photograph of her sitting in front of the Wanderer. She once again was a member of the Caravan Club, and she became vice president of the club for several years. And she was actually the member of the club that took the Wanderer to rallies, and she was a well-known and very active member of the club. We have this other wonderful photograph of her in the Wanderer with the Caravan Club old pennant on the side.
It's amazing though, right from day one, they've got a pennant, they've got a logo, and it's very much a club to belong to. And if you're anyone who's someone who's in those days wealthy enough to commission such a thing, it's a thing that you want to be a part of.
Yes.
And it can't have been easy dragging this just over 2 tons of wooden caravan around to meets and things.
It wasn't, but Ottoline strongly believed in the Wanderer as being the first iconic caravan that people were inspired by, so she made this incredible commitment to try and take it to rallies and meets.
And in many ways, it was the first classic caravan then as well.
It was, yes. She was taking a piece of history to sites. After that, unfortunately, Ottilie Gordon-Stables moved to the US, and so she put the Caravan in storage with a company in Maidstone. And she knew that that wasn't the place that the Caravan belonged to, because it was just left in the yard and it was exposed to the elements and it wasn't looked after, it wasn't used, it wasn't lived in, so it was just perishing. So she started writing letters to several different companies, several different museums, several different caravanning associations, trying to persuade people to acquire the Wanderer, or even she was willing to donate it to different clubs or associations if they were willing to look after it, because she couldn't afford to keep doing this and she wasn't living in the UK anymore. So the club once again has preserved this wonderful story.
Wow.
And we have records of letters sent.
What sort of era is this then?
We are in the 50s here.
Right.
So we have some letters that she wrote regarding the Wanderer, asking if someone was able to make it roadworthy to take it to the US. We have letters in which she offers it to the Ford Museum.
Wow.
And then we have...
Because I suppose by this point, it's 70 years old.
It is.
So it's already an antique in the 1950s.
It is. It was already considered a historical item that was worth preserving. And so what Ottilie was trying to do was finding a museum that was able to host it and preserve it in the right way. Unfortunately, because it was such a huge and cumbersome item, it was impossible for her to find a ride home for it. So it was left outside in this yard with this Maidstone company for a very long time. And we have one photograph of how it was, in what state of disrepair it had fallen in the 60s.
It's interesting you say that. It doesn't look great, I would admit. But it's all there, isn't it? It's all as it was. It's not been... It looks like they've closed all the shutters up. They've tried on some level to look after it.
At one point, Ottilie said that she couldn't afford to keep paying the fees for the company to keep storing the caravan, so she asked them to destroy it for her.
Oh no.
But because, of course, these people knew what they were handling, they literally didn't have the heart to. So they said, we're going to keep it there. It's outside. We're not going to do anything to maintain it, but we really cannot destroy this wonderful item.
And let's be honest, it's a wooden structure. It's not designed. I mean, the fact that in that photo, it's presumably over 70 years old.
Yeah.
And it's not just a pile of rotten wood on the ground. It was clearly built very well in the first place, but also looked after to some degree.
Yes.
So how do we make that leap then from this very sad looking caravan in the corner of the yard into the Caravan and Motorhome Club getting involved again and giving it a new lease of life eventually?
So probably the club didn't actually get involved. The Ottilie Gordon stable bequeathed the caravan to the Caravan Club. So the club all of a sudden had the responsibility of the Wanderer, and what they managed to do was finding a safe place for it. So in the 60s, the Wanderer moved to Bristol.
It's interesting that all the way along the story, people know what it is, they're passionate about it. They even in the 1950s, they're still aware of what it is, they want to save it. And the club probably could have turned around and said, well, it's not worth saving, but they did.
They did, and
they got involved.
And they managed to get a museum to look after it. So this was the City of Bristol Museum and Art Gallery, and they hosted the caravan for a very long time. So they started doing some small restoration works on it, and this was the leaflet they produced at the time for the Wanderer, which features this incredible illustration of what the caravan looked like inside. It shows some of the incredible features. The violin. It shows the valet of Gordon Stables.
It's interesting as well in the living wagons that were a bed on wheels with a stove in them. This is the blueprint of a modern day caravan. It's got a place to prepare food inside. It's got a small wash basin and what looks like could be a freestanding toilet in the back corner. It's very much the beginnings of what we know caravans to be today. You can't imagine people nowadays practicing the violin. I'm sure people do, but It really was a pursuit of all things leisure, wasn't it?
It really was. So at that point, the Caravan was owned by the club. So in 1982, for the 75th anniversary of the Caravan Club, they decided to do a full restoration project and to actually take the Wanderer back on the road. So we have some photographs in the collection of what it looked like, the interiors once it was restored, which is very similar to what it looks like today.
I mean, that's the amazing thing is because it miraculously survived. Although it had this restoration, that's all it was. So much of it, even to this day, is exactly as it was built.
Yes, and they took it from the Bristol Museum, where it was then staying, all the way to the Royal Windsor Horse Show. This is what is known as Operation the Wanderer, and it was traveling on the road, as reproducing as accurately as possible the original condition in which Dr. Gordon Stable was traveling. So they had a dog to replicate Hurricane Bob, famously the first dog that Dr. Gordon Stable took in the Wanderer. They had someone on the tricycle that was preceding the Wanderer to announce and let the car know that actually something was coming on the way. It was towed by 2 white horses, and it had a little parrot as well.
It's amazing. And the thing again, contextually, when this was built, we've already spoke about how they had to have the person on the tricycle to forewarn people that it was coming. We're now in the 1980s where the speed limit for towing is 50 miles an hour. We've got roads, we've got motorways. This would have caused quite the tailback in 1982 with 2 horses pulling 2 tons of caravan across the country.
It did, but once again, it was an incredible exhibit on the road, and the Caravan Club put on some really serious planning with maps, timed itineraries, making sure that each stop was observed so that there was a safe space for the horses, because of course the horses needed proper stables to rest through the night. And we can follow the whole journey thanks to these wonderful albums that the club made of both the planning and the actual trips.
So then it ends up at the Royal Windsor Horse Show, which of course is not just picked at random.
It is not, because of course the patron of the club was there, and the patron of the club is the Duke of Edinburgh, which was obviously involved as part of the celebration, and we can see here in this historic photograph admiring the Wanderer.
Wow. So it's funny really that having that royal connection is just one part of its huge story. And of course, it didn't just finish in 1982. It again formed a big part of the centenary celebrations in 2007.
So once again, the Caravan Club, recognizing the incredible value of this caravan, they decided to take it to the garden party that the Caravan Club held at Buckingham Palace for its centenary celebration. So it was once again rode into the gardens at Buckingham Palace. But it wasn't the only thing that featured the Wanderer. It was used on commemorative memorabilia like this plate that the Caravan Club produced for the centenary, and it features one of the photographs that we also have in the collection with the Wanderer and then Gordon Stable sitting having a picnic tea with his family.
It's amazing that the story of it has endured that long, and the club finally decided let's make a big feature of it, and in 2013 it moves to the Broadway site, which is pretty much slap bang in the middle of the country, and members come here anyway because of its great connection with the Heritage Railway and everything, but it seems fitting that it should have a home here and celebrate that heritage which the Caravan and Motorhome Club collection is so keen to preserve and promote.
It is, and the wonderful thing is that it's free for everyone to just come in and have a look at. It's right in the middle of the site, and we had a lot of work done to try and preserve its condition. So we have a dehumidifier trying to keep the environment controlled. We have glass around it to protect it from light and any possible contamination, and we also have a UV filter on the top to prevent too much sun exposure. So it is properly looked after here, but it's where it belongs, with club members where they can see it.
And also as part of the ongoing efforts to preserve it and show it to as many members as possible. You get quite involved a couple of times a year with the big clean, which most of us, that involves a brush and a bucket, but and a lot of water. But this is obviously very, very specialist.
It is a bit more complicated than that because, of course, we try to keep a record of the condition of the caravan. So the first thing we do on site is just having a condition log, trying to make sure that the cracks that naturally appear in wood are not expanding. We try to make sure that there are no molds or pest infestation. So we always have, we do a condition check of the outside. We also check the interiors for mold, and because humidity, there is a huge fluctuation in the humidity level, we just make sure that all the upholstery inside is not getting moldy or ruined. And we do that twice a year, once in winter before it retires during the off-peak season, and once in spring just before it opens for the summertime.
It's outlived literally hundreds of thousands of caravans from all over the world, and it's not been rebuilt 6 or 7 times. They were able to preserve most of what was there originally. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.